Now, what started as a typical July Saturday night in Mount Carroll ended in tragedy. A family and a community rocked by the mysterious death of a young man, and 3 months later, they are still waiting answers.
You know, you hope that you're going to get an answer. You're going to find closure to it. A lot of sleepless nights. I mean, I have a lot of sleepless nights. I can't imagine what his dad and his mom's going through, losing a child like that.
State police hasn't even really kept me up to date on any of this. So I haven't talked to them in a couple months. It's just really hard not really knowing if he's going to get justice or not, or what really happened.
Now, this all stems from an incident in the early morning hours of July 28th, when the Carroll County Sheriff's Office says they received a report of a body in the roadway at around 3:30.
22, I'm getting a report of a body, 78 in Loudon Road. Be advised, my caller states he has blood.
Now, the body found in that area at around that time was later identified by Illinois State Police as 2024 West Carroll High School graduate Jackson Kradle, who had recently turned 18. Now, you heard the location 78 in Loudon in that audio from County Dispatch. Let's show you where that is. It's just north of Mount Carroll on Illinois Route 78 near Loudon Road. But what about the call you just heard reporting that body in the road? Well, we submitted a Freedom of Information Act request to the sheriff last week to obtain all 911 calls from 10 p.m. to 4 a.m. that night Jackson died. And as it turns out, whoever found Jackson's body did not call 911. And we received recordings for 6 calls, and none of them included anything about finding a dead body. Now, I reached out to the Illinois State Police special agent in charge of this case to see if he would identify the caller, but I've not yet got a response. After months of silence amid an ongoing investigation, the Carroll County Sheriff has released more details about the night Kradle died. In particular, Sheriff Ryan Clipping confirmed an off-duty deputy and an off-duty dispatcher were the ones who reported finding the body. Now, he also confirmed those employees were placed on administrative leave the following day and given notice of an internal investigation. Then 2 days after, both employees resigned from their respective positions. And through a records request, TV6 has identified those 2 employees. However, we are not naming them because they have not been charged. So let's look at what else the sheriff released tonight. While Illinois State Police is still in charge of this case, the sheriff's office provided a timeline tonight describing the actions Carroll County took the morning Jackson's body was found. Now, it began at 3:33 a.m. when the dispatch center received a non-emergency call from an off-duty employee reporting a body in the roadway just north of downtown Mount Carroll. Now, at 3:45, 2 state troopers also responded, and a short time later, ISP crime scene services were called to the scene. Now, the sheriff says the people who reported the body were released from the scene sometime after, but we do not know what time they were allowed to leave. Then at 5:14, the Carroll County coroner was contacted to respond, but investigators had not said how Kradle died. Now, the sheriff's release comes just as I received several documents and recordings related to this case through a records request. Now, of course, I will continue to dig through the information, and of course, we will provide updates as soon as possible. It was an early Sunday morning on July 28, 2024 at 3:31 where this story begins. But it's also where the life of Jackson Kradle ended.
We just dropped off at home, and we were headed up 78, and there's a body laying in the road just north of Mount Carroll on 78.
What the
For the first time, you have just heard the person who reported finding Jackson's body, who was an off-duty deputy with the Carroll County Sheriff's Office. And we will refer to this man as employee number 1.
Like a deer?
No, it's a body.
Like a person?
Yeah.
Okay, did you guys stop?
Well, we stopped to check on it, and I'm calling you, yes.
Is it breathing?
No.
All right, call me back if anything changes.
Now we fast forward 7 minutes to 3:40 when we hear an Illinois State Police dispatcher make contact with the Carroll County dispatcher for the first time, asking about the incident.
No, I was just about to call you. I was just about to click on your number. I'm honestly not even, positive what's going on.
All right, and you have the fire department, EMS, and all that stuff, right?
We do not.
The clock is ticking, and state police makes contact with Carroll County again about 10 minutes later, asking again why EMS was not responding to the scene where Jackson's body was found.
You guys don't send EMS out there to confirm that the guy's dead since they're medical people?
A paramedic is on scene.
Now, the paramedic the Carroll County dispatcher is referring to is an off-duty dispatcher with the Carroll County Sheriff's Office who is also a paramedic. Now, we will be referring to this woman as employee number 2, who can be heard on the original call with employee number 1.
I mean, I asked them if they wanted me to contact the coroner. They told me no. They never told me to dispatch. It's a dispatcher and a deputy that found him. The dispatcher's a paramedic. I asked them if they were going to start CPR. They told me no.
Now, shortly after this call, a Mount Carroll police officer was first to arrive to the scene before both employees in question were allowed to leave. But that would not mark the end of these employees' involvement in this case. On the very next day, Monday, July 29th, both employee 1 and employee 2 were notified by Sheriff Clipping they were being put on paid administrative leave and that they were not only subjects of an internal investigation, but also the subjects of an official Illinois State Police investigation for the death of Jackson Kradle. Now, the scope of the investigation was not limited to discovering the body, as documents from the Sheriff's Department accused both employees of violating state vehicle code in direct relation to Jackson's death and conduct that would discredit the department. But the questions go beyond that, even showing an interest in what both employees were doing in the hours prior to Jackson's death. The employees were set to be interrogated by Carroll County 2 days later, but investigators never got to ask those questions as both employees resigned that morning. Now, we're still waiting for anything official from Illinois State Police and the prosecutor's office to release anything about their special investigation. Now, I have reached out to employee 1 and employee 2 named in the documents we received. We left a message for one, and the other would only speak through their spouse, who essentially said no comment.
This is something that has absorbed this community for really the last 100 days, but really what it comes down to is this family has been waiting for answers. What have you heard from them? Yes, well, I actually saw the entire family today, including the mother for the first time. They heard these recordings as well, and obviously an emotional response. They've been asking questions for a long time, and now they're getting closer to the truth. Getting closer to the truth, that's the most important thing, although there's still a lot left to be desired for them, as they want the people who may be responsible for anything that may have happened to be held accountable and have justice brought to them. We will have more from them tomorrow night at 10 o'clock.
Okay, did you guys stop?
Well, we stopped to check on it, and I'm calling you, yes.
Is it breathing?
No.
That's what comes to mind.
It's appalling how they handled the whole call. I just have no words for how unprofessional that all went down. Not getting him any help.
Now, Diana and Joshua also heard the calls between an Illinois State dispatcher and a Carroll County dispatcher, where State asked County why EMS was not responding to the scene.
All right, and you have the fire department, EMS, and all that stuff, right?
We do not.
It's really mind-boggling how they didn't call the right people to come.
They didn't even try to get him help.
Yeah, they didn't even try to get him help. I can't understand that.
It's very shocking. I'm shocked they didn't call 911. I'm shocked that an ambulance wasn't called. I mean, if they just rolled up on there and he's still warm, why wouldn't you at least try to get him help?
And despite still not having official information from state police investigators, Jackson Kradle's parents say they are grateful they are getting closer to the truth and justice with the phone calls and documents being released to the public.
Well, I feel like that's a good thing because the more people that speak up, the more chances we're going to get of justice, I believe.
Now, to this day, Illinois State Police and the prosecutor's office have not named any suspects in connection to Jackson's death. However, we did learn the official cause of death over the weekend from the coroner, who said Jackson died after being hit by a vehicle. Well, now, these never-before-seen reports provide the first glimpse into the scene where Kradle's body was found, just minutes after it was reported to authorities. Now, as we have previously reported, it was 2 off-duty employees with the Carroll County Sheriff's Office who reported finding the body. And we will refer to the off-duty deputy, a man, as employee number 1, and the off-duty dispatcher and paramedic, a woman, as employee number 2. Now, the officer wrote that he determined Kradle was dead along with employee 2, and wrote that she told him she chose not to perform CPR after assessing the body. And the officer also wrote that he did not find any damage on the front end of employee 1's truck there at the scene, which was parked about 25 yards south of Kradle's body. Now, he also wrote that he did not smell any alcohol on the employees and wrote that they both appeared to be, quote, steady as they walked. And finally, the officer described the demeanor of these employees in his report, writing that the 2 seemed, quote, normal and professional. Now, these new details run counter to what we just learned from documents obtained from the Carroll County Sheriff's Office just last month, which showed those 2 employees were subjects of an internal investigation and an Illinois State Police investigation into Kradle's death. Now, in those documents, we learned both employees were put on administrative leave and ultimately resigned from their respective positions before being interrogated by county investigators just 3 days later. And some of what the county said the employees were being investigated for included violations of the Illinois Vehicle Code and statutes relating to the death of Kradle. And the county also said the employees were being investigated for unbecoming conduct that reflects negatively on the department. And it went even further than that, saying investigators were interested in both employees' activities in the hours leading up to the discovery of Kradle's body. Now, those 2 reports paint entirely different pictures of those 2 employees. Right now, we're waiting to hear from state police and a special prosecutor who have been leading the investigation. Now, as of tonight, they have not named any suspects, but did say there was a person of interest connected to Kradle's death.